Hi, everybody on YouTube. We are ready to get started. I just need to get set on Instagram, and we will begin this Q&A for Crushing Doubt. Just a little bit of lag time, and then we'll get going. Here we go. Okay, great. We are live on YouTube and on Instagram as well as Facebook, I believe. So I'm going to say hi to some people shortly, but first I wanted to, of course, whoops, didn't want to pull that up yet. First, I wanted to, of course, introduce myself. I'm Dr. Dan Ratner, and this is Crushing Doubt's live Q&A every Thursday, or most Thursdays anyway, at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. And I am here to answer mind-body questions. Of course, many know what mind-body issues are, but let's talk a little bit about it. This is when your thinking or your emotional life translates into any physical symptom, and it can be head to toe. Anything the body can do, the mind can use it. So I do these Q&As, of course, because I got better from 8 years of chronic everyday back pain. I did not have any sense that I was going to get better until I read Dr. John Sarno. And even after I read Dr. Sarno, I didn't get a book cure per se. I had to get a lot of answers until I understood what was happening. That's why I do these Q&As. So I'm going to answer questions in relation to what I call my 3-column system. And this involves basically feeling, thinking, and relationship with the self. And it's called the column system because I divided it into 3 columns on a sheet of paper when I initially started working with people on it. And the columns are emotions, which correlates with feelings, doubt, which correlates with thinking, and power, which correlates with the relationship with the self. I'll answer any and all questions about that. And what I'd like to do pretty much is dive in and get right to it. So first, let me say hi to some people. Jan Namsk 1, sorry. Thank you for joining us here. Darlene, thank you for joining on Instagram as well. Hillel says, hi, Dan. Good to see you, Hillel. And then Warren said, hi, Dan. You know where I am using your column system. 2 questions. I'll get to the questions in a second, but let me first say hi. Lynn Slavensky says, hi, Dan and community. This really is a burgeoning community that I'm excited to be part of and, of course, leading. Andy says, hi, Dan. Good to see you, Andy. Good to see you too, Beatrice. Kasim, great to have you here. Laura, thank you for joining us as well. Teresa says, hi, Dan and Crushing Doubt community. Good to see you. Warren saying hi to everyone. Great to have you. We've got a lot of people in the house today. It's great. Ani Crowfoot, good to see you, Ani. Ani just recently did my training. She's going to be a coach in the field, which is exciting. Lynn Nestor says, loving this work so much. Thank you, Lynn. Very good to see you here. And I would love to hear more about what specifically you're loving if you'd want to talk about it. Solitary Daughter, thank you for joining us on Instagram. We got a lot of people joining. Okay. Lori says, hi, Dan, Rita, and everyone. Great to see you, Lori. Okay. Let's jump in with some questions. Oh, and Rita, thank you for joining us here. All right. Hillel has the first question here. When do symptoms stop appearing from the emotions column? In the case of doubt, I understand how it gradually fades, but when is it supposed to end in the emotions column? Okay. What I find about any of these Q&As is, first of all, my first answer is just my first answer. This is an ongoing conversation. The way people get better from mind-body symptoms is to continue to have a discussion about it. So if I answer a question and you have more questions about it, let's do follow-up. And that includes questions that other people asked. It may not have been your question initially, but it may bring up something you need an answer to. So let's first talk about these columns a little bit to couch it. The way that I talk about these columns is that the emotions column is for the onset and uptick in symptoms. It relates to feeling, but it's also about those initial onsets and upticks. The doubt column is about those seemingly chronic symptoms, and it is about your thinking. And then the power column is more about symptom plateaus or just conflicts within the self about the recovery process. And we use, any methods that we would use to look at your relationship with yourself and get you unhooked from certain problems. So each of these columns gets people unhooked from certain problems. What Hillel is referring to is that he understands that in the case of doubt, sorry, I've got a wire that is tangled around me. I'm just going to get rid of that. What Hillel is talking about is that as you bring down doubt, those seemingly chronic symptoms would gradually fade. But he's wondering what happens in the emotions column. So my first answer, and we have to see how satisfying this is for everybody, is that in the emotions column symptoms, you can reduce them tremendously. But at the same time, it's part of the human condition. the columns are part of the human condition. You're not going to live a life where you have nothing happening in your columns. The columns describe how we are as human beings, even when we're not having flare-ups. So when we have an emotions column symptom, it is signaling that there was something we're not aware of. It's just a sign that we're not aware of something, and we can use that to become aware. Now, hello. If we become really, really aware of the emotions and how everything's flowing, we tend to have a lot less symptoms. But at the same time, everybody's going to have a lot of emotions column symptoms. Here's the good news. They tend to get much lower in intensity. They happen even less often. They become more informative and less of a problem. That's what I have found. So I have mind-body symptoms of some kind every day. The emotions column, it does not end, but I don't mind that at all because it's just information. And a lot of it doesn't even tend to be that uncomfortable. It could be just like I got a little itch, or I had a sneeze, or I was sweating a little bit. Okay, those things are fine. What I don't want is really painful, awful things or illnesses, and I especially don't want anything that will last. When we talk about measuring progress in the columns, we want to have no chronicity, and we want to have greater mastery and expansion in our ability to control symptoms, and even having symptoms less often, but they don't stop. And if that then raises some kind of doubt, or that feels bad in some way, we've got to look at that and get that situated and settled. To me, it's not a problem that there are emotions column symptoms that you're going to have, either from time to time or maybe even on a daily basis to some degree. I'm talking about really little symptoms. That doesn't stop, but I don't have big symptoms most days at all. I hope that answers your question. Let's see what you think about it from here. Okay, I'll say hi to a couple other people. Let's see. Rita, thank you for saying hi to me and the Crushing Doubt gang. Rude Master, Rudy, good to see you here. He calls me Pain Detective. That's one of my favorite nicknames. Really appreciate it. I Love Mind Body Work has joined us here too. I believe that is Chanel. I got your email. I am going to get back to you. I'm behind on emails, guys, and I apologize about it. Okay, I will be with each of your questions as soon as possible, but I want to put in a plug for something. Don't think of this or any time you're talking to me or seeing anything that I do as a time where you're just looking to get only your question answered. I want to get the questions answered in a more full way for everybody. So each and every conversation, each and every question, each and every answer should be, if it's done well, feeding your ability to see, this is making more sense, more and more and more sense, and giving you more confidence that you can get better and why you'll get better. Eldreeson, thank you for joining us here. I think that's Lene, but I'm not sure. But well, if it is, hello. If it's not, hello. Either way. Okay. I'll get a question from Instagram. Okay. Jan Namsk says, what can it mean if symptoms are always at certain activities like laying down and sitting? Don't doubt the mind body. Okay. So you know that it's mind body, but you're wondering, what does it mean when it repeats in connection with certain activities like laying down and sitting? To me, what that means is that there are what I would call doubt triggers, or some call it conditioned responses. You're expecting it anyway. Even though you know it's mind body, your doubt goes up when you're about to engage in those activities. And that's probably because of the experience of those activities. So if you've had those experiences a lot, you're going to expect them. Now, what needs to happen, Chan, to break those doubt triggers? We have to go in with different thinking. This is a huge part of the mind-body process and my column system is if we change what's going on up here, we change what's going on down here. Everywhere else, of course, it's really all the same. But if we change what's going on in our head, it changes what happens in our bodies. One way that I have of talking about this is that it does not matter what you're doing. It matters what you're thinking while you do it. So what I'm suggesting here is that when you're laying down or sitting, you're probably just thinking the same things again and again. One of them might be, I hope it doesn't hurt, or I don't know why this is going to get better. Those are repetitive thoughts. And I don't mean any of that critically, but let's use those repetitive thoughts. Let's pull them out of, hiding in your mind and get them articulated. So I have this thing in the doubt column where there are 3 steps: observe, articulate, and counter. To observe is to call it into question, and you're already doing that. You're already saying, what is this? This can't be This can't be right. I got to look at this a different way. That's observing, and that's great. That's the first step. The next step would be to get it articulated, put into words. What do you think is happening at those moments? Now, you may not even need it because I've already countered it just now with the fact that this is a doubt trigger. But the question is that enough for you? So let's do follow-up, and we'll talk about it. One little plug I want to put in here is that these Q&As are great, but because there's not direct interaction where we can talk back and forth, it sometimes there may be some lag in terms of figuring out what is it you wanted to say and what questions do I need answered. Whereas, in the groups that I run, in the membership group that I have, there's very quick give and take that can just get us even further. If we were sitting down together there, I'd have asked these questions. You'd have asked me questions. We'd get much further in our understanding of what you need answered and what that answer is. But these Q&As are still good. You can do follow-up here. You can get your basic questions answered, and we'll go from there. Okay? Carrie Tischler, thank you for joining us here. And Ice, good to see you, my friend. Glad to see you're here. Let me know if you have questions about anything, including any symptoms you may or may not be having or just the system in general. All right. Let's see. We've got Warren up next. He said he has 2 questions, and here they are. My pain level has even increased the last 2 weeks. Why would that happen if I am feeling more of the emotions in the emotions column? How long can it take to reduce symptoms using your system? Okay, I'll take one question at a time. My pain level has even increased in the last 2 weeks. Why would that happen if I'm feeling more of the emotions in the emotions column? Okay, well, there's a couple things here, Warren. First of all, it could be that you're feeling the emotions, but you don't know the specifics of what they mean to you. So I'm going to say that again. You can feel the feeling, but if you don't know the meaning, then you're not really connecting to what the feeling is. The symptom is distracting you from feeling. In the emotions column, the function of the symptoms is distraction. They're there to keep you from knowing something. And I think what you're saying is, but I do know it. I'm feeling it. And I'm saying, as good news, okay, you know about the feeling, but that doesn't mean you know what it means. It's when the meaning really clicks that you can get a massive decrease in that. Now, that's one reason. Here's the other reason. We know that one of the reasons your doubt goes up is when you have symptoms at all. So you feel those emotions column symptoms, your symptoms go up and your doubt goes up. You don't have your doubt low enough yet to get to a place where you can say, okay, I'm just dealing with an emotions column symptom, right? So I'm going to be able to look at that emotion and get these symptoms down. You don't have the confidence in your emotions column yet. And one of the biggest reasons is what I formerly said, that you may have the feeling but not know the meaning. So I want to focus on the meaning, okay? Now, second, how long can it take to reduce symptoms using your system? That's highly variable, but one of the things that I really love about my system is usually you can get symptoms to reduce very, very quickly in certain periods of time. It depends on when your understanding clicks, Warren. So for some people, it can happen really fast. I mean, I've worked with my record is 1 session, I got rid of 9 years of heartburn. That's not the typical norm, but it can happen very quickly. It's all about when these columns really, really click. All right. So I don't want you to worry that maybe it hasn't happened in that way. However, you have gotten results. You've already gotten some results. We just need more results. We need the next step. There's often a next step in the process, Warren. And what you need to do is to recognize that what I just said for question 1, that's your next step. So how long can it take to reduce symptoms? It all depends. I have a video on my podcast that says you get better at the speed of doubt. You still have doubt when an emotions column symptom comes in. So that's slowing down your process some. That doesn't mean that it is going to take long. This could click, and tomorrow or later tonight, you could have a huge breakthrough and get control of symptoms hugely. So it's anywhere from now to fairly soon. It usually, I find that I'm getting results with people of some kind within a matter of a couple of sessions, a couple of weeks. And actually, you fit with that. You have gotten results. The question is, do you think that? It never matters what I think other than as feedback. ultimately it's going to matter what you think, because that's the brain that you're carrying forward, and that is the mindset you're carrying forward that carries forward your symptoms. Okay. Pro Navendorp, thank you for joining us here. Okay, Jan Namsk says, wait, on your website it says the new membership is coming soon. When will it open? Okay, thank you for addressing that, Jan. It's helpful for me to address the audience about that. So we are in a 1 month transition phase where we're running all of the old groups the way that we were, but we don't have them available to order right now because we're reshuffling how we're doing. We're kind of reorganizing how the group memberships will run. That is all going to begin June 1st. So that's coming up soon. However, if you really want to come see me in group or you need to talk with me, you can email me, dan@crushingdoubt.com, and we can just talk about options. The existing groups, they're still going on. And if you really want to jump in and come straight to it, we'll set something up to make that work. The current setup of the groups, which it's really a fantastic setup, but the current setup of the groups needed to be shifted some to accommodate for more people because there's just more people coming in. So I tweaked the setup a bit, and that's going to begin in June. Jan, let me know if you have questions about that, or certainly email me as needed. It's dan@crushingdoubt.com again. Scotty Styles, thank you for saying hello. All of your wonderful emojis. Love it. And then Scotty said, the pain can turn on and off like a light switch. Ultimately, that's what you're all going to find. This relates to Hillel's question as well. The emotions column symptoms, they don't end, but they become so controllable. And so you can just switch them on and off. And Warren, all it means that isn't happening yet is something hasn't clicked. Further questions need to be answered. We got to keep going. Okay? You're doing great. Okay, Jan says, you are very kind and easy to understand. Thank you. My pleasure, Jan. I'm glad I am. If I wasn't easy to understand, that would be a problem because that would only lead to more questions. But I'm really glad to hear that you're experiencing me that way. Thanks so much. Please do let me know if you have other questions. I'll answer anything you want. Okay, Kasim says, wondering what internal thoughts or pep talks that I can give myself when doing something new that might trigger a doubt symptom. Okay, so Kasim, I'll give you my initial answer, then let's do follow-up. That's what we got to do always, right? So, some of it's going to depend on, well, which type of thing are you doing? Which type of worry are you having? But what I love about your question is that you're engaged with yourself. You know that the self-talk is the key. So you're already way ahead of the game. Now let's get into the specifics because that's what you're asking about, okay? So, all right, let's say you're about to do something that might trigger a doubt symptom. Let me just scroll down. You actually did say something. I'm gonna get into what you said here specifically. I'm doing squats at physio, and I realize I do squats through the day without symptoms, but doubt came in and said you're doing 10 in a row here with some back pain. It felt great to do the squats. Okay, so I'm going to use that as the example, right? Because that's a perfect example of what you're asking. It's much better to have you bring the specifics. And you said just trying to minimize the doubt trigger. Okay. So here is what this is one version of what you could say to yourself. Now you said I do squats through the day without symptoms, but can I do 10 in a row? All right. So I would push back against doubt and say it makes no sense. The only thing that doing 10 in a row could possibly do is tire out the muscles. That's all it can do. Listen, if you run a marathon and you get too tired to finish it, let's say, all you do is tire out the muscles. Nothing bad happens. You don't get hurt. Nothing breaks. You just get tired. There was a really interesting Instagram post I saw from a woman named Ellen Langer, who I quote in my book. She's a great sociologist, I believe, that worked at Harvard. And not that credentials matter necessarily in terms of where you were, but she's a great thinker. And what she noticed is that people tend to, when they set a goal, they tend to think that they're going to get tired about 2/3 of the way through. They had somebody do 70 jumping jacks and they got tired about maybe like 50 jumping jacks in. Then they had somebody do a task that was 140 jumping jacks and it was actually 100 jumping jacks and they got tired 70 in. Always around 2/3. Then they had them do 200 and they were able to do 140. Now, these were the same people. These were numerous cohorts of people. always the people who were assigned 200 could do well over 100, whereas the people who were assigned 100 couldn't. So it's all about your expectations. This would be one of the things that I would bring, Kasim, is this 2/3 rule. In fact, I was just thinking, man, I got to do a podcast on this 2/3 thing because it's huge. Just the expectations of what we think we can do, they determine everything. When I play full court basketball, I actually set my expectations further. I say, okay, today I'm going to play for 3.5 hours, which we never do. But I set it out there because I don't want to get tired early. All right. So set your expectation in a different place. Challenge that it's all about the beliefs. And you said it felt great to do the squats. Yes, it's going to feel great to you to expand all of the things that you can do. All right. Now let's take that and use the follow-up, whatever you have to say about that as the next question. Okay. Karen Isaac says, hi, when I sit for a while, I'm so stiff getting up. It's almost as if I need a wind up lubricant for hips, legs to move. I'm back to my waddling, but I'm making a decision to talk it away. Okay, well, good to talk it away, Karen. Hold on. Then you said, I'm doing heavy visualizations about how I want to walk, move, feel. If nothing else, it makes me feel better in the moment. Okay, Karen, here's what I would say. When you get stiff, I want you to think of that as a mind-body symptom. You're not actually getting stiff. I mean, yes, it is there's stiffness there, but it's not because your body just gets stiff when you do that. We need to challenge that. Doubt has weaseled its way in here and getting you to believe that again. We don't actually get stiff unless we're tense. So there is some kind of tension, and you can find this within the columns. Just back up, look at the 3 columns and see what's happening there. Is there an emotions column thing happening? Is the doubt column, has doubt risen? Am I low in power for some way? In some way. But the key here, Karen, is you're expecting to get stiff, and I want you to challenge that. I shocked the hell out of myself in a good way. I drove for 9 straight hours at one point. And when I was going to get out of the car, I said to myself, this is similar to what I was saying to Kasim, is like, what do we think about? I said to myself, I'm not necessarily stiff. If you're sitting in a relaxed position, you'll just get up normally. Sometimes people say, oh, I get stiff after sleeping all night. You're supposed to be relaxed lying there. So that doesn't make sense. The same is true when we're sitting. It's all about whether we're sitting tensely or not. This has nothing to do with sitting. This has nothing to do with stiffness. This has to do with tension. Karen, let's do a follow-up on that, okay? All right. Wow, we got a lot of questions rolling in. I'm going to do my best to get to all of them. Okay. I Love Mind Body Work says, that's Chanel. What do you say to someone who says that they have periods of excruciating pain and they have doubt that they can do the work because in those moments of severe pain, they feel like they won't be able? Okay. To reframe their thoughts, I talked with Rita about this, and we talked about how ultimately it is level 1 doubt, but I wanted to hear your thoughts too. Okay. Then you said, I totally agreed with Rita, by the way. I'm just very interested in how to help someone who is at this point of pain level. Okay. So I like to talk about that no matter what's happening, it's just a given moment. We just need to understand the moment. So something's happening in this moment that's driving the pain higher. Either there's a huge emotions column onset or uptick, and we need to look there. And if you don't look there, it's not going to change. Similar to what I was saying to Karen, you can try stretches when you're all stressed out, and it'll be like bending a piece of iron. But if you get yourself into a more relaxed state, I find I can actually stretch twice as far when I'm in a good mind-body space. So what I want to do is bring them out of the doubt and worry as quickly as possible. And sometimes it can help to just say, no, this is emotions column work. And that can allow them to put the doubt aside and get to work on the emotions, because that's usually what's driving that. Now, if instead this is being driven by extremely high levels of doubt, then we got to deal with that. There are 4 forms of doubt, and they come in stronger forms. Fear is the strongest form of doubt. It's the worst. We want to bring down fear and get it to just confusion. That's actually an improvement, even though confusion isn't great. It's an improvement over fear. Then we want to bring it to just a lack of certainty. Then we want to bring it to just unanswered questions. So Chanel, I would say you're either going to work to bring down the forms of doubt into a more manageable position, get them to calm down and ask the questions, or you're going to work on the emotions column. One of those two. Let's see what you think about that. Let's follow up, okay? Okay. By the way, if I miss any questions, please do let me know. Rody Jangles and Shelby Geyer, good to see you both here on Instagram. If I miss any questions, either let me know or just ask it again, okay? Because there's a lot of questions coming in. I don't want to miss anybody. Let's see. Beatrice, you said and, so I think I may have missed something. Yes. You said level 1 doubt high since I likely have torn cartilage. I'm going to get into that in a second. And high pain level cannot see as anything but structural since there were some events. Okay, so first of all, torn cartilage, believe it or not, is not correlated with pain. It sounds painful, but they did studies of athletes who were not symptomatic, not having symptoms at all, and well over 50% of all basketball players who were totally non-symptomatic, 50% of players who were non-symptomatic had torn cartilage in their knees. Now, that cannot be if torn cartilage actually causes pain. We've got to start like respecting the science that we see more. I love this saying that I have for myself, which is, do you believe this or not? And I know you guys are all on the way towards believing it, but it helps me to remember, oh yeah, if I believe this, then the idea that there are studies that show that torn cartilage does not cause pain should mean there's no way that's causing pain in you, Beatrice. And I fully believe that, but unfortunately, it's not my belief system that's going to determine things. Now, the events. Yeah, there are all kinds of events. But the question is, do you believe in things like evolution has made you very strong? There's no, and in fact, if you think about it, why would evolution have made you unable to do this, but I can do it just fine, or so many other people can? And I'm not saying that to make you feel bad about you. I'm saying it to elevate you. You're the same as us. So why are these events so bad that they would lead to this? Like a steroid injection, for example. There's not a chance in hell that would have caused anything. No. What typically happens is they do imaging and then they see things that they hadn't seen before. Unfortunately, they're seeing things, but they don't know what they're seeing. Okay, let's do follow-up as needed. Okay, Laura says, when I Googled symptoms, it says nostalgia paresthetica, which is a nerve hitting up against the skin. I never injured it 9 years ago when it started, so I don't know. Actually, this analysis is perfect. I never injured it 9 years ago when it started. So you do know, actually. Hopefully that's helpful, Laura, but I want you to have confidence in the data you see. If it started 9 years ago and that wasn't injured, it's not the source. Things are not as complicated as they're making it. They're making it very, very complicated. Like, it's strangely complicated to say that something that didn't begin when the symptoms began is causing the issue. That makes no sense at all. And Laura, I'm not saying that to mock anything you're thinking. I totally get it. We all think this way, but we need to retrain our brains to not think this way. So try to think about it as you actually do know. All right. LJP Wright, thank you for joining us here. All right. Let's see. Jumping back to Instagram, Carrie Tischler. I talk to myself, my brain, NS all the time, nervous system all the time. It's very helpful and cumulative to the positive for me anyway. I think that's so important. The self-talk is incredibly important. So much of mind body work is about a threat response or a sense of danger. It's not only that, there is also the communication of us wanting to know ourselves. There's a positive side to the symptoms that's just talking to us in a more positive way. But a lot of it is about getting out of the negative first. And that's, moving away from the danger. That's actually another good podcast is, moving away from danger first and then into positivity. All right. So thank you for that comment, Carrie, and it's very supportive for other people as well. She says, hi, Scotty Styles, great coach. Scotty, I hear great things about you. We need to connect directly. I can't believe we haven't after all these years. Okay, let's keep at the questions. Oh, Laura, you had follow-up from what you said. Need to lay down for it to feel about 80% better, and when I'm sleeping, I don't feel it. If I'm up and moving or stressed, it acts up bad. It travels to the right side at times too. My new symptom is a mix of electrical shock pinches, burning sensations randomly all over my body, but not every day. Okay, unpleasant symptoms, but we can get them under control. Then Laura said, I've been able to get rid of most of my mind body issues, but this one seems to be a stubborn one, and symptoms have changed over the 9 years. Do you think this is mind body and can go away? Let's start there. Yes, this is mind body, and yes, it can go away. Almost every symptom everybody ever has is mind body. And I'm not saying that without, pausing to check, because it is important that I think about these things. But 99.99999% of all symptoms are going to end up being mind body. Yours are behaving just like it. What else would explain these kinds of things? What else would explain the fact that they go away when you're sleeping? That's your mind being in a different place. A lot of times when people say to me, how can I be sure it's mind body? And then I investigate and they're only having symptoms, let's say during the day, but not at night, or not during the day, but only at night. That shows that the symptoms are changing with your mind state. Your body doesn't change during those times. Okay. So yes, this is mind body. Yes, it can go away. You said a lot of stuff in here, though. I want to make sure that I got to the fact that it travels the right side at times, sometimes too. This is all behaving like mind body. I can promise you this is mind body. It can go away. Laura, let's do follow up though. Okay. All right. Beatrice said high pain level after an acute event. Yep. I get it. But those were very triggering events. And you're in an elevated state where you think, I don't mean this critically, I mean it supportively, but you're thinking that every acute event is going to lead to really something bad, because that's how your nervous system and body is behaving right now, because doubt is so high. For some people, when doubt is super, super high and have something that I call neuroplastic feedback loops, Beatrice, we've talked about this. It's like a magnet for collecting symptoms. Now, a lot of you are not going to have that, but some of you will, and you may be collecting symptoms at the moment. Your job is to dial back the fear and to get to a place where you realize you can actually control how far that spreads. If you can stop the spread, that's the first step. Or even just slow the spread. That's the first step. Then you'll stop it. Then you'll start to move into the positive elements of the recovery where you're actually turning the symptoms back. All right. So keep up the good work, Beatrice. You actually are doing it, even if you don't think you are. I'll keep sharing with you why I think so. Okay, Hillel says follow up, but I'm a very emotionally aware person. That's why I find it depressing, because I don't understand when the pain onsets because of emotional world stops. I get you. I've got a good answer for you. Hold on a second. And I also didn't understand when this transition from painful emotional onsets to just small physical emotional symptoms happens. Okay, I'm going to talk about both, Hillel. So, being very emotionally aware, that can be a double-edged sword, because I had the same thing, having a mind-body symptom right now. Hold on a second. Hello, you know why I'm having this symptom? Because I'm so like you in that way. I am emotionally aware, but then there are things I'm not aware of. And I must be having that right now, even though I'm saying I think I know what it is. I just take my body at its word. Okay, so wow, I'm having a big mind-body response to that one. Woo! Mind-body issue right here. Eyes watering, tickle in the throat. Something's bothering me about it. I'll figure out what it is, but look what I did, Hillel. I just said, no, this is mind body. I didn't start to think, oh, did I swallow something wrong? Did I have an allergy? No, none of it. I had a mind body symptom right in front of you all. Great. Now, it could be that it's like, oh no, I don't want them to see me have this mind body symptom, but that's weird, because I actually don't care. I'm thrilled that you saw me have it, because this is what emotions column symptoms are like. They're there all the time. But look what just happened. Was that so bad? No. I don't mind having symptoms like that. Now, let me answer your question, even though I answered it bodily in a way. The first thing is you can be very emotionally aware, but not aware of the right thing. That's one thing. And the other is this. You're not going to like this at first, because I think it freaks you out when I say power column. But the emotions column and the power column are both emotional columns. The emotions column is where you discover the awareness. So what you're basically saying is, doubt is trying to use this against you. Depression is a form of doubt. It's trying to say, well, you're already aware, so this won't work. You're just stuck here. No, the power column is where you make major gains in your emotional world, major changes and adjustments. Now, you may have your doubts about whether you can do that, but that's crap. Everybody can do it. So the key here, Hillel, is to know that if you become emotionally aware of certain things, but you still find it depressing and you still feel stuck, that's a power column issue. And you're not alone in that. We can just do the power column work. All right, let's do follow-up. Hilarious that I had the mind-body symptom, but great that you guys got to see it right in the moment. You even got to see me deal with it. I dealt with it. I thought, okay, this is an emotions column symptom. I didn't even really figure out what it was. But by knowing that with such certainty, I never got into any doubt. I also didn't have my power dip all that much. I did a little bit. I was like, oh my God, this is happening right in front of everybody. But that's a good thing. It's a good thing for me to get comfortable with that. You know what? It's not a big deal. I'm going to take care of me. All right. All right. Andy, I have a foregone conclusion. I'm broken due to my stammer, which fuels low self-esteem, self-doubt, harsh self-criticism. The pain of not being heard or understood is heavy. How can I go to power? All right. Well, there's a couple things, Andy. One is that first, let me reassure you, you are not broken. You're also not stuck with the stammer in the form that it's in. We can get really good control of it. A stammer is a very emotions column kind of event. I mean, look at it, just happened for me essentially. It was a different form of it, but I was coughing. I needed water. I didn't even need water. I just tried something. And I felt like I couldn't get the words out in the same way. We all have these things. So in some ways, this is the opposite of what you are worried you're going to have to do, that you can't get to power because you have these symptoms. It's actually the opposite. We're going to get you to power, and it's going to actually make these symptoms much diminished, which actually fits with the part that Hillel's question that I did not answer, which is, when does the transition happen? A lot of it's when you get into power. When you get into power, then the emotions column symptoms are much lower. So, Hillel, that's not bad news. Doubt's going to convince you it is, but it's not. All right, back to you, Andy. How can you go to power? Here we would go straight to the power column work. In the power column, there are two main tasks. It's forming your core narrative and then assessing and adjusting for power. Forming the core narrative is how you situate the past for yourself, find a new way to it. All right, and we can do that. And then we can assess and adjust for power, which is about the present and the future. How are you going to recognize when you're out of power and figure out what are you going to do about it? Doubt, which foregone conclusions are all doubt. They're trying to convince you there's nothing to do about it. Well, that's actually complete garbage. And I mean that with all due respect to anyone who thinks such things. I understand it. Even for you, I want to answer this in a different way, Andy, where the idea is we can work on power. What I would encourage you is, if you're open to it, join my membership groups starting in June or even sooner. I even have a power group, but that's for people who have their doubt nice and low. So we'd have to see if that's a good fit. And basically, I just want to work with you on it. You shouldn't have to work on this alone, guys. Part of my job is to do this work with you. All right. Now, how can you get to power? I would walk you through those. First thing we do is core narrative. Get you connected to your real story of suffering and get you to a place where you feel better. Okay, Warren says, thanks, Dan. I feel like I have zero mastery of the symptoms. That's just doubt talking. You actually have far more mastery of that. You've had low symptom moments already. You're just not giving yourself credit for them. And we need to work on that. Don't mean that critically. I mean it supportively. Okay. All right. Back to Instagram questions. Let's see. Did I answer Chanel's question to reframe their thoughts? I got to go back to this. Oh, I did answer that part, but then she says that it's a trigger example, like smelling a perfume, and she's allergic, but not truly allergic. Well, it could be a doubt trigger, but I would, unless fear is really, really high, I'd be looking at emotions, because doubt has a way in if that emotions column symptom is fooling you enough. Chanel, let me know if that made sense to you. Okay, Shelby says, you know my story, and these symptoms seem way too high for only mind body, Dan. Oh, Shelby. All right. I'll get into this in a second. Chronic and severe and don't all add up to mind body, right? No, entirely the opposite. No. The more severe the symptoms are, the more likely it is to be mind body. Even severe medical conditions don't tend to lead to nearly as severe symptoms as you get with mind body. So now it comes down to, do you believe what I'm saying, Shelby? But I am right about that. By far, the most severe symptoms I've ever had are mind body. It's not even close. The more chronic it is, doesn't make sense. The body is designed to get over these things. The medical field is actually very good at helping with things that they know about. What they're not good at helping is things they don't know about. Chronic and severe is screaming mind body. Now you said, but I guess my doubt is super high. Thoughts aren't well. That's 100% true. What the heck do I do? Where to even start? Like last week felt better and now hell again. Well, look at that. Look at that issue. If you felt better last week, how does that speak to a medical condition? The main thing that would have changed from week to week would be your mind. Your mind changes thousands of times a day. Your medical status doesn't. Okay, now let's work on that. Hopefully that helped you. You said one-sided symptoms kill me. They scare me. So much doubt. My intrusive thought is real. I totally get that. The reason you think one-sided symptoms are scary is that you've heard in the mind-body community that if they're two-sided symptoms, it's certain to be mind-body because that doesn't make sense. One-sided symptoms are just as apt to be mind-body. Here's the thing. Your symptoms and your doubt wants to be convincing. So it'll choose whatever's convincing for you. If it knows, your doubt is as smart as you are. It knows what you know. It knows that you think two-sided symptoms are mind-body, so it uses one-sided symptoms. That's what it's using. Okay? Jan Namsk says, you are right. It does help listening to all answers. Great. My sensation goes away right before I fall asleep. While I haven't even moved, the sensation can literally disappear. You got to pay attention to all those inconsistencies in presentations. They all speak to mind-body. Nox Flamma, thank you for joining us here. Good to see you. It's been a while. Okay. Darlene says, great morning. Arm stiffness, weakness, not an issue. Beautiful. Almost normal. 2 hours later, total cramp in hand arm. I didn't do anything to make it happen. Why good then awful? Emotions column, Darlene, or maybe something raised your doubt and fear right at that moment. But it's momentary. Look at what's happening here. This is all signs that it's mind body. You had a great morning. Medical issues don't just vanish. They don't. Mind body symptoms do. And by the way, if they stay chronic, that's because of doubt. Almost none of this ends up being medical. Pretty much nothing. Okay, Nox Flamma says, stoked to be here. Great to have you here. I am going to be wrapping up shortly, so let's you can always go back and review this on Instagram, on YouTube, or on Facebook. But see if you can get a question in here, and I'll be happy to answer it if I can. Okay. Lori says, when working at the store, I still get very activated in my face. I don't feel any doubt. I keep moving forward. I don't obsess, but the symptoms do not lower at all, even hours later. Thoughts? Okay, well, Lori, this is probably not going to surprise you because we've talked about this. And I'm going to say it again because it's just useful to go over again. Never feel bad if I'm repeating myself to you. That's totally normal. We've got to go over these things again and again. What's happening here is there is some kind of emotions column event that you're not aware of. You're feeling in danger in ways that you don't realize. Here's a helpful thing that I read in Alan Gordon's book, The Way Out. He was noting that danger comes in many forms. Danger may not even be the right word. And stress is a complicated word in certain ways also. But the way that I like to think about symptoms being activated is just there's something bothering you. It doesn't have to be super dangerous. It's just bothering you enough. It's a symptom onset or an uptick, Lori. I think you would agree that that is true. Well, my rule of thumb is that means it is emotions column. Okay, I'm going to do a speed round now and see if I can get here. Okay. Carrie said, I highly recommend getting a coach or working with a group that has a coach. It has changed my trajectory significantly. And I would agree that mind-body symptoms are much more powerful and hurtful. Thanks for weighing in on that, Carrie. It's hard to do this work alone. Almost everything that I do is because I had a hard time doing that alone. And at the same time, I was very successful at it. So it wasn't that hard. It wasn't so hard that I couldn't do it. But it was very hard. I wish there had been somebody here just like me. Okay, Beatrice says, cannot seem to break the doubt, stress, pain cycle, and injury proneness. You're not injury prone. You are prone to collecting a new symptom because you're so worried whenever I'm walking or trying to live my life. I'm telling you, Beatrice, it's because you're collecting symptoms because doubt makes you a symptom magnet when doubt is super high. That's not just you. Okay? Okay, Susan Serena says, Dan, do you think the fear I have of having titanium in my shoulder could be causing doubt? Yes. And the weakness and symptoms in my shoulder? Yes. Doubt about doing the surgery? Yes. That's all it is. All of the things that you're talking about are a perfect fit for what happens in doubt. Okay, Karen Isaac says, love what you said to Warren. I love more on that answer and topic. I'd be happy to talk about it. It's funny because I'm in such a blur. I'm like, wait, what did I just even just say? So I'm glad it was helpful. We'll get back to it. All right. Now, Warren said, great explanation, Dan. Thank you. What is a challenge for me is the lows are still very low. That's okay. I'm not saying okay, like that's where we're going to finish. And I'm also not saying it's okay, like, oh, I don't care that you're hurting in those moments. What I want you to remember is, but look at the overall progress. The more progress we've made everywhere else, the more time we can devote to these big lows. So it's still better because we can work on that more now with the other stuff out of the way. Okay. All right. Noxlama says, I just got the notification that you're live. Sorry. Damn, that sucks. Instagram failed me. Yeah. I don't know what's going on with Instagram in that way. I always gain new power from these lives. Fantastic. So Noxlama, just as a rule of thumb, I usually start at 6 p.m. Eastern on Thursdays. So you usually won't miss it if you just know that. Maybe jot it down somewhere, but I don't know. Let's look into those notifications. Here's your question. What's the technique you most recommend or how to apply somatic tracking? Oh boy. Okay. So the technique I would most recommend is my system. I know that sounds like a pat answer, but the reason I say that is my system is actually quite simple once you learn it, but it has multiple parts to it. And so that means you're going to be able to apply it in a much more dramatically connected and effective fashion. There's only 3 columns. There's only a handful of things you need to do in each column. Usually 1 or 2 tasks, maybe 3, that you need to do in each column. That's it. So what I'd most recommend is get my book. I actually haven't talked about it on my website, www.crushingdoubt.com. You can get my seminars, which teach all about this. You can sign up for my group membership starting in June. We're in a shifting state, and my book. So you can get my book on Amazon, but you can also get it at www.crushingdoubtbook.com. And if you get it there, you can get the seminars at a discount. If I had to recommend one thing to anybody, it's read my book. It gives you everything. It gives you the entire system. This book gives you everything you need. Now, it's a hefty book in that way, and I'm not even talking just about in terms of pages because I got it down to a reasonable amount of pages, but there's just so much information, really good in every way. So Nox Flamma, if you don't have the book yet, I think you do, but get it anyway. And then the next thing would be to follow up with me about how do you implement the system. Somatic tracking is a great thing, but it's just one option to use primarily against doubt, which is just to experience the symptoms. I'm giving you much more than that. There's 3 columns. It simplifies everything. It tells you what to do when. So that's what I'd recommend. Okay, Rudy says, when are you going on tour, city to city? Not yet, but maybe sometime. It'll be after my kids go to college because I like to be home with them. But I'm on tour virtually, Rudy, and when I do come to new cities, I will have book signings. You said I'm debating getting the audiobook or just sending for a hard copy book with your signature. Well, Rudy, what I would recommend is getting the hard copy book with my signature because it's taking me a while to get to the audiobook. I'm going to get to it as soon as I can, but I just am swamped with all kinds of things. I don't want you waiting. And I would do that. And also the audiobook will be much, much cheaper when it's time. So maybe you can get both. I'd get that hard copy book with my signature. Okay. Okay. We're really running out of time. I'm going to go super fast through the rest of them if that's okay. Shelby said, so then how do I lower the doubt? Because I'm lost. Doing the 5 Fs. Sorry, all. I know I'm being negative. It's just a high doubt day. And Dan, my mindset changes when my symptoms do. Yep. You're having a high doubt day. What I would recommend, Shelby, is just figure out why is the doubt higher today. And you said agreed, but hard to afford a group or coach with lack of work. So my new system, my new membership system is that the groups are going to be $100 a month. And you get 4 meetings. So hopefully that's affordable enough for people to come and join. And Shelby, I know maybe that's not, and I get it. It's not like that's nothing, but let's talk about it. And meanwhile, you have this. This alone is doing a lot of the work. You know, we've done a lot of work together. Okay. I'm going to see if there are questions from anybody who has not asked one before. No. Okay. Let's see. Laura says, oh, hold on. Health anxiety. and mind-body issues all my life. Have had lots of trauma in my life, plus living with a narcissist husband for 25 years. You have been through the ringer. I have lots of stress, anger from the emotional and mental abuse. So sorry about that. Which column should I work in? All right. There's a flow to the system, which is bring down your doubt, then learn about the emotions, and then flow into power. This is something I would recommend to virtually anybody. Start with doubt, Laura. Okay? Start with doubt. Doubts about why you can get better. Doubts about anything about whether this is mind body or not. Earlier in the discussion, you asked me, is this mind body? And I said yes, and that's a great and correct answer. But the question is, does it make you feel confident in that? Okay, then Laura said, thank you, Dan. New here and watch lots of your videos. Great to have you here. They're helping me so much. Beautiful. So much to work on, but I feel like I'm in the right place. You are in the right place. I try to give answers that really work for everybody. And I don't settle for anything less than full answers. So my book, I can't recommend enough. I know I'm the one who wrote it, but I wrote it for people like you that was me. I wrote this book to me first. So I highly recommend it. And by the way, if you have read the book and you got a lot of help from it, please, 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 please consider leaving an Amazon review, hopefully a very positive one, because that helps so many people out there when they're combing through all these different books they could read and they see this is the one. That's extremely helpful. There's a lot of questions that did not get answered, unfortunately. If you asked a question that did not get answered, and Amir, thank you for joining us here right at the end, but good to see you, my friend. If Shelby says amazing book, thank you, Shelby. I really appreciate it. If you can leave a review, that's extremely helpful. With respect to questions that didn't get answered, oh, wow. Shelby said best mind body book out there. Thank you, Shelby. I really appreciate that. If you did not get a question answered and you really want that question answered, just mark it down and bring it back for next time. Or in my membership groups, there's a community site where you can actually put questions there and they stay there and I can answer them, and so they don't get lost. So sorry that I didn't get to every question. Susan Sereno says, yes, the book is amazing and extremely helpful. I highly recommend it. Thank you, Susan. Again, please don't be shy about putting those reviews out there. It's a huge, huge help. All right, guys, I will see you same time next week. We'll keep it up. Keep those questions coming. You need to get your questions answered. I'm doing my best to answer them as to your satisfaction. And if they're not answered to your full satisfaction yet, keep asking the questions. I'm going to give you good answers. Okay, thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.